The Champions League semi-finals have been set, and these ties look fantastic. So today I'm going to give you my predictions for each of these semi-final matchups, as well as looking back at all of the games that have happened so far in the knockout round, comparing them to how I predicted the ties would go, and see how close I am. So let's first look at all of the games that have happened so far to get us to this point of the upcoming semi-finals. We start with the first round of 16 game that was PSV versus Arsenal. I of course had Arsenal going through in this, and I didn't think they'd do as well as they did. Scoring that many goals in a round of 16 game was not what anybody expected, so fair play to Arsenal, they were fantastic. Next up was a hotly contested tie. We had Real Madrid versus Atletico Madrid, and this one was a bit of a coin flip for a lot of people because Atletico's defense against Real Madrid's attack. I had Real Madrid going through this one, and a bit of controversy with the Julian Alvarez penalty, double touch, or whatever, but Real Madrid did eventually go through that tie to face off against Arsenal in the first quarter-final. Next round of 16 game is where I got my first L of my predictions. PSG against Liverpool. Two insane games. The first one, Liverpool coming away with a result, but they got battered by PSG. That front line is just beautiful to watch. The freedom and fluidity that these PSG players go onto the pitch with is genuinely so entertaining and refreshing to see, away from all of sort of like the robotic nature of a lot of teams' tactics and setups and things like that. You've basically got players that feel really confident on the ball and in their own ability, and they trust their teammates to be able to beat a man and then get in the position to score. It's amazing to watch, and that tie between PSG and Liverpool was amazing. PSG definitely deserved to go through, and that they did, but I did predict Liverpool. Then we had Club Brugge versus Aston Villa, two teams at the very opposite ends when it came to qualifying for this round, and I think basically everybody expected Aston Villa to go through here. Maybe not quite as comfortable at times as they would have hoped in these ties. However, they did safely make it through to face off against PSG. So to complete this left side of the draw, we had Arsenal up against Real Madrid. This is exactly as I predicted. However, I thought it was going to be Liverpool against Aston Villa. In the first tie, Arsenal-Real Madrid, I had Real Madrid going through, as I think most people did. Nobody saw, really, what happened coming. You may have thought that Arsenal would potentially go through against Real Madrid, but did anybody see them dominating for 180 plus minutes? I don't think so. You obviously didn't predict Declan Rice to score two of the best goals that he'll score in his entire career in the same night from free kicks. Insane. What a performance from him in both legs, and what a performance across the board from Arsenal. They shut down Madrid and made it look easy. I do feel like Real Madrid in recent seasons, even if they've gone on to win the Champions League, they've had some fortune. For example, when they knocked out Man City previously, maybe it was like last year, where it came down to like scoring 2 goals in the last 5 minutes, but how they end up in that situation is fortunate, but they take their opportunities well. They didn't really have any opportunities to take against Arsenal because they just weren't good enough, and Arsenal were. And bearing in mind, this is an Arsenal team that in the Premier League has looked a bit lackluster, right? Of course they have injuries, and they did have the returning Bukayo Saka to help them out, which is obviously massive for them. But they're still relying on potentially starting the likes of Mikel Merino up front, Trossard, Sterling in these kind of games. So how they did so well against Real Madrid, is there a world where they pretty much already thought that the league was done, so they're going to put absolutely everything, 110% in these two games, and the Premier League maybe will play at like 90%, and if we don't go through, well, we gave it everything we could. But they did it. So, fair play to them. Arsenal in the semi-final, as we saw. And then we had PSG versus Aston Villa. Again, the first game, incredibly entertaining. The second tie, even more so, with Some drama coming down. Villa looking like, oh my god, they're actually going to do it. They're going to come back and go through against this crazy PSG team who you dominate like the first half, and then the second half you look like you're on the back foot the entire time. Villa are all over you, but they just can't quite get that final goal to take it to extra time. It looked like it was going to happen. I think it was Ian Matson who had the strike that was sort of curling bottom corner. It was blocked. Some amazing moments, some unbelievable goals as well, especially in the first game between these two. All 4 goals were fantastic quality, and a really, really entertaining tie between the two. PSG going through to the semi-final. So, crazy things that we've got, and now we have Arsenal v PSG there. Let's go on over to the other side of the draw. Benfica versus Barcelona. I had Barcelona going through here because I think that Barca this season, especially in 2025, are a beast of a team. You've got the likes of Yamal, Pedri, phenomenal this season. Rafinha, in like the best form of his career. Lewandowski still smashing it. And someone that maybe isn't getting the credit, you've got some of the younger players like Kabasi. You've even got like Inigo Martinez really showing their worth. Garcia as well. But Szczesny has come in and done really well after the ter Stegen injury, and there's actually news, as of the time of recording this, he's going to sign for another year, so fair play to him. But Barca go through against Benfica, and then I did get this one wrong, but at the time I said it was going to be a punt. I said that Lille would be the upset that go through, and that they would beat Dortmund and end up against Barca. I was wrong on that one. Dortmund ended up going through, playing Barcelona in the first quarter final. Barca destroy them in the first leg, and it looks like they're just going to be like easy through to the semis. But Dortmund in the second leg, they put in a good account for themselves. And it's an okay result on the night, but not enough to take them through. And we see Barca going through to that semi-final. Deservedly so. They are just really, really tough team to beat. And the resilience and, I guess, clutch nature of this team right now. You may have seen their most recent result. They were 3-1 down and ended up coming back and winning 4-3. It's what they're doing this season. So it'll be really interesting to see how they do in the semi-final. Who are their opponents, though? Well, we had Bayern Munich up against Leverkusen. I did predict that Bayern Munich would go through here. A lot of people actually saying that Leverkusen would get the better of them here, but in the league this year, they've just not quite been as good. Do people like Xabi Alonso have their eyes on the Real Madrid job? Is Wirtz looking at Bayern, Man City, Madrid, something like that? Who knows? But they've just not quite hit the highs of last season, which is understandable. You're not going to be able to match that in back-to-back years, are you? So Leverkusen go out to Bayern, and then Feyenoord against Inter felt like probably one of the easiest ones to predict, with Inter Milan going through. And then we had Bayern up against Inter Milan, and I predicted this one correct. I said that Inter Milan would be going through against Bayern Munich in the quarter-final. A lot of people seem to underestimate the Serie A teams, and I feel like this happens quite a lot. Even after the year where Man City won their treble, and you had multiple Italian teams getting really deep into these competitions, it's really impressive. And I watch a decent amount of the Serie A, and the quality that you see on show is really impressive. Lautaro Martinez alone, if you don't know that much about Inter, you've got to know that he is just lethal at club level. International level, for whatever reason, similar, maybe he's got the Higuain gene, where at club level, he's an absolute killer. But internationally, for some reason, it just doesn't quite hit the same. But does not matter, because he scored a quality goal, and Inter Milan see themselves up against Barcelona. So this is where we are now. We've got the semi-finals. We've got Arsenal against PSG on one side, and Barca v Inter Milan on the other. So my dream scenario is seeing the Classico for the Champions League final is over, unfortunately. How do we call the semi-finals, though? What are my predictions? Arsenal v PSG. My goodness, is this a hard one to call? Because PSG look like one of the most exciting, if not the most, in the competition. The amount of attacks that they have in a game is crazy. The way that they bomb their fullbacks forward, you saw both fullbacks scoring in the second leg. It's what they do. Nuno Mendes is one of the best fullbacks in the world right now. But then you've got this crazy midfield. You've got the likes of Vitinha in there. Desiree Doué, who they end up bringing on off the bench. He was like a Neymar regen. French one. Dembele, Barcola, Kvicha, Kvaratskhelia. Just what a fun squad this is. It's so refreshing to see, and it sort of feels like it follows on with Kvicha from the Euros, where Georgia were really, really fun to watch, because it wasn't just him. The others also just went for it in every game, and this is why PSG are really good to watch. But Arsenal defensively, the solidity, even without Gabriel, who obviously is a huge part of why Arsenal have been so good, specifically defensively, for a couple of years. He's coming on leaps and bounds, but also he's been really good at the other end of the pitch. The amount of goals this season, in the first half of it, when Arsenal were known as like the set piece FC, and that Yova clown was crediting everything. Gabriel was huge for them. So to go through against Real Madrid in the fashion that they did, basically, you've conceded a dodgy goal where I don't know what Saliba is thinking, really. But outside of that, you've looked so good against what is supposed to be one of the most dangerous teams in the world. Can you do the same thing against the fluidity of PSG? I've got to put a prediction out into the world because that's what people want to see, right? I genuinely feel like this is a coin flip. I have absolutely no faith in a prediction right here. I would love a PSG versus Barcelona final. I feel like that would be up there with the most entertaining Champions League finals that we've had in recent years, because so many times it's so cagey. You have teams that you're basically trying to win 1-0. You're so terrified of attacking because you're so scared of a counter-attack. I feel like those two teams would just go at it, and you could genuinely see like a 3-2 Champions League final rather than a 1-0. So that'd be great. But Arsenal impressed me so much against Madrid that in my heart, I want to say PSG, but after seeing what they've done in this competition, I'm going to have to go Arsenal to make it to the Champions League final. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I think they're going to do it. I think the confidence of knocking out Real Madrid, I don't think you can underestimate how big of a boost that is. Even if, as we all know, Real Madrid did not play at their best, right? And Ancelotti's looking like he's going very, very soon, potentially as a result of this. But it doesn't matter. You've just beat the kings of the UCL. You are flying high, right? The Prem, it doesn't matter, right? You're finishing probably like top 3 minimum, even if you basically do nothing throughout the rest of the campaign. So this is where all of your focus and energy has got to go. And barring any more injuries, I think Arsenal are going to do it. Let's go to the other side of the draw. Barca v Inter. Inter, better defensively than Barca. I would have more faith in Inter being able to pull off like a 1-0 than Barca. However, I would have more faith in Barcelona winning a game 4-3 than I would Inter Milan. I am and have been a Barca fan for 20 years. Does that mean I have any bias when it comes to predictions? No. Because then what is the point in doing any predictions? I would just say that they would win the whole thing from the very beginning of the season every single year. It's completely pointless. However, any of you that watch Barca this year know how insane the level has been. And as I say, the clutch gene, some of these top-level performers, even the younger players, just phenomenal. It's so hard to say that they won't go through. So what reasons could we give? Inter are lethal with the likes of Lautaro Martinez. Their midfield and the way that they utilize these sort of like wing backs and whatever that they have is really impressive. And it might be something that Barca aren't fully used to coming up against, because you're seeing a team utilize it at the top level rather than someone maybe in like the middle of La Liga attempting to use a different kind of formation and not really having the players to do it. I think if there is going to be a downfall for Barca, that's where it's going to come, is people like in terms of positioning, DiMarco, right? Flying forward, that kind of thing, down the wing, and being this massive overlap with the defensive actions as well, utilizing the space behind Barca fullbacks. I think that is the only way that we really, really see this Barca team get undone by Inter, and potentially that ends up with those players then whipping the ball in and finding Lautaro Martinez because his movement is so good. All that being said, I still think Barca going forward are just so good that I can't see them not breaking this team down. And so I think it might be a bit tighter or closer than some of their other games and rounds in this competition, for example. I'm going to give it to Barca to go through against Inter. And that means my final at this point has gone from a Clásico to Arsenal versus Barcelona. The TT Derby. Is there a world where I can see Arsenal beating Barca? If they play to the absolute best of their ability, it feels like this is the unstoppable force against the immovable object. You've got this solid Arsenal defence against this flying Barca attack that can easily score 4 goals a game. Which one of those manages to edge out the other? Arsenal will, at that point, have fully fit Saka. Some other players that have been coming back from injuries should be fully fit. They're still going to be without Gabriel, and maybe they're going to also still be without a proper striker for the rest of the season. So will we see Mikel Merino up front in a Champions League final? For Arsenal's sake, I'd like to think not, because even though he's done okay there, that's still not what you want to be going in with. I feel like because they just do have these couple of injuries that are out until the end of the season, unless Barca also get some kind of injuries going into this game, I think that might be the difference maker. And if both teams were fully fit, I genuinely am not sure what I would go with. I think it would be that close. So I think the injuries are going to be the deciding factor here. And I think, despite all of their efforts, I think Arsenal will lose to Barcelona in the Champions League final. And there's a world where Barca win the league and the Champions League, despite the arrival of Mbappe and everyone thinking, this is Real Madrid, right? This is it. They've won everything for the next decade. Well, Arsenal shut them down. Teams in La Liga have been shutting them down. Maybe this is finally, after all of the years of dodgy Bartomeu ownership and stuff like that, Laporta trying to bring things back to normality and turning Barca back into what everyone should respect them as in terms of the level of club. It feels like in the last 5 years or so, Real Madrid have just been going this way and Barca have stayed here. Whereas in the past, they were up here, everyone else was down here. It feels like Barca are creeping back up, and this would basically solidify it. So those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments. Do you agree? How were your predictions going into the round of 16? How are things looking now compared to your initial predictions? I got a few teams wrong. There is a good chance that I do have one of my 2 teams that I predicted to get to the final to be there. But the left side of the draw, very different to my predictions. Thank you very much for watching. We will have a vlog going up of the Liverpool game within the next 24 hours where we could be confirmed as relegated. So that'll be fun. Thank you for watching, everybody. Goodbye.